So I would love minimum cooperation between us and be able to proceed with the project and build up something tangible to put on our portfolios. So, but right now, we are going to just do a minimal introduction. And by tomorrow, I should set up an assessment which we will go through so that by Saturday we have our instruments. And that instrument is your code, your IDE, that is your coding editor, your GitHub account, and just bring out your logical reasoning to be able to think on how you can code and how your coding steps can be. So right now, just give me some minutes. I want to share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Hello?
Yes, your screen is off.
Okay. So yeah, I'm in my GitHub account and I've set up this is what we are going to go through: the internet, the web, and just simple introduction to HTML. And I'm sure that we are aware of what the internet is. We are also aware of what the web is because it's something we use daily. It's something we use on a daily basis, the way we communicate, the way we search up information, right? Hello? I would love the class to be interactive so that any question you can ask me, we know how to tackle each question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
please.
So
Please,
I'm going to share this link on the
let's-
WhatsApp group, right? And before sharing the link, we are going to, I know that most of us, we know what the internet is. We search for some things on our browser, on the mobile app, on our iPad, on our tablets, on the PC also. And internet is something, is like a global network of connections, like a wire that is attached to a central point of connection, right? So is computers communicating together. That's what we call network. When computers communicate with each other, that's what we call network. So the internet is the network of computers and devices communicating with each other, and they use standard protocols. And these standard protocols are what's it called? Necessary protocols put in place for effective communication, right? And this internet, we use it to transfer basic information, complicated information, right? But in our level right now, we just try to understand how we can send information basically at the foundation. When you transfer data, that's why you have the web. The web is like, how will I say it? I don't know if we on what's it called? In our traditional system here in Nigeria, we have the traditional system where uh, we have a medium of communication. So the web is like a medium in which the communication is being transferred from the connected from the central processing unit of another computer to another central processing unit of another computer. And we can also imagine internet as a massive place where you can retrieve your, let's say, okay, you love ordering on Jumia or you love ordering on Temu, and we have a depot, right? You order for something on the internet. You've already sent the request on the internet. You order something in your cart and you've already paid for it, right? So the order is sent, the letter is sent from your side and it's going to go through the postman. And in this in the programming world or in the internet world, we call it ISP, that is internet server protocol, which is something is like a postman that carries your letter, or it carries your order. It carries your order to where it's going. From the postman, we also have something like router. I know we are familiar with router at our homes, like all this MTN router, all this Airtel router. The Airtel is the ISP, the protocol, right? Why the router is what they give us to be able to interact with the internet, to be able to interact with the network. So this router is the one that will sift through or sort through our requests, sort through our orders. Okay, is this order right? Is this order something we should send to the server? We come down to the server, we explain what the server is. So ISP, from the ISP, we have the router. From the router, we also have what's it called? The lines, or I always call it lines. It's something you can relate to, is the network, the cable lines that are put in place in each town in the city. So it's going to pass through that line and it's going to come down to the server. Now, the server is what we accept the order that you requested on Jumia or you requested on Temu. So from there, the server will now read through your order. Okay, is this order something we should send to this DNS? Now, DNS is like your domain network, the address, the IP address. Are we sending it to Google? Are we sending it to Jennifer.com? Are we sending it to techeagles.com? So that is what our DNS do. The DNS will take in the request that was sent from you the first place, or the order that was sent from you the first place, that went through the IPS, that went through the router, that went through the lines or the network of communication before coming down to the server. So after coming down to the server, it will not process the response that is going to send back to you. Maybe it's delivered, maybe it's cancelled, maybe there's an error in your message. So that's what the server is going to do, and that's how the internet works. That is what internet is all about. Internet is about sending a request and receiving a response. When you are sending the request and receiving the response, there's always a middleman, and that middleman is what we call DNS, IPS, router, the network provider, the lines that was connected, the line that is connected to the area where you send the communication, right? So after going through how does the web work, we can see here we have the role of browsers and how they render our web pages. That's where your work as a software developer comes in. So here we say that a web browser is a software application that allows user to access and view web pages. So web browser is a medium. That's the medium we are talking about. I don't know, but pardon me, in Yoruba here we have the traditionalists where they consult. They have a medium of consulting. As if you're a Christian also, you have a medium of consulting. We have the, what's it called, the Bible. If you're a Muslim, we have the Quran. So this role of a browser is the medium for you to be able to consult with the server, for you to be able to send a request and to receive a request. So we have several browsers, which I know you are familiar with. We have Google Chrome, we have Mozilla Firefox, we have Safari. We also have Microsoft Edge, and sometimes we use Opera Mini. We also have the one that is most secure now, DuckDuckGo, or another one, I've forgotten the name. So when you enter a URL, that is the Uniform Resource Locator, that is your www.blah, blah, blah, into the browser address bar. And here we have the browser address bar. You can see github.com. We have the browser performs several steps to render the web page. So after sending that request, we have the DNS lookup. And this is the browser first needs to resolve the domain, that is to search for the address. Where are you sending it to? Does the address exist? Is the name readable? Is it something the machine can read? Is it something the machine can relate to? Like you search for Google. Sometimes you can search for some things that are not reasonable, that are not okay right now. And the the browser was trying to search, maybe it match what they have, it matches the address of what they have. And you can say, for example, we have an example here. I search for something not coherent and it's bringing out something like this, right? So from the DNS lookup, we have the HTTP request, and this is once the browser has the IP address, it sends an hypertext transfer protocol to request the server to the hosting website. That is, it sends a text, an hypertext, which is like a message to the protocol, which is used to transfer web pages and other resources over the internet. We also have the server response. which we discussed already, which I talked about already, excuse me. And the server response or processes the request. It processes what you sent and it sends it back to the through the HTTP response. And we have several responses, which later down the line we are going to discuss. We have the 200 responses, we have the 300 responses, and we have the 400 responses, and we also have the 500 responses, which is the 500 responses is the responses from the server that is there's an error from the server side. We also have the rendering. So when your HTML when you have an HTML, naturally you should also have a CSS. You are going to have an HTML, your markdown language, and you're also going to have the styling. Normally, when you have I don't know if this website is still available. Sometimes when you go to your Word, Microsoft Word, it looks like HTML. There's no style, there's nothing. There's no alignment, there's nothing. So that is your HTML. But when you now add CSS files to it, is what makes it beautiful. It's what makes this button responsive to have a drop down. Is what makes this thing to have a search bar and a blinking navigation in the search bar. Is what makes this button to have a drop down also. So your CSS give your HTML, which is a skeleton, it gives it flesh for you to be able to relate with your web browser. So do you have any question for me right now? Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Uche.
Yes, ma, I can hear you.
Am I too fast?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I said, do you have any question for me right now? Or I'm too fast? Should I go on?
Ma,
Okay,
you are
so
very fast though. Just go.
okay. So what I'm talking about now is websites.
Okay, class is also being recorded, right? So you can always go over the class again. Do you understand? Like, there's room for you to like watch the class again. It's being recorded.
Okay, ma. Thank you. That's better. Thank you.
So right now we are going to talk about the client and the server side. We've talked about the web browser. The web browser is what we are saying right now. And I told us that there are different kind of web browser. We have the Microsoft, we have the Google Chrome. So right now I'm on Google Chrome, right? And we have the client side. Right now I'm going to try. These are our client side right here. And when you try and inspect, we have something called inspect on every browser, either on what's it called? Either on Mozilla Firefox or Google browser. So yeah, when you inspect, you can see how your network is being sent on the network here, on the network tab of your console. But then when we move on with the class, you will understand what is going on with the network tab. But yeah, I want to try and explain what client side and server side means. Yeah, I'm going to send a request. I'm sending a GET request here. And you can see several requests being sent back here on the network tab here. We have 200 response, which I talk about here. The server response, we have the 200 server response, which is the status code here. And the reason why we are saying this thing is because on the client side here, these are client side. This is what you are interacting with as a user of the web browser, right? This is what you are interacting with. So when you try and run your browser or you unload your browser, you are sending a GET request and it's sending back a response from the server, which we can view here on the network tab. And we can see several things being fetched. We have the PNG, we have the XML, we have the SVG. So the client is the device in which you use to communicate, in which you use to send your requests. So it's usually a web browser. Sometimes it can be a app, an application on your mobile phone or your iPad or your tablet or your laptop. So this send HTTP request. You know, when I was talking about when you send a request by unloading here, I'm talking about a GET request. You are not filling up a form. You are sending something to the server. So the server is bringing out response, and this is what is being fetched, that is being rendered on your client side, on your browser. We also have the server. So the server is a computer or a software that hosts the web resources. That's where your resources, your PNG, your picture, it hosts your fonts, it hosts the kind of what's it called, HTML, the number of HTML, the number of text you've written. So the server is a computer that is holding all these resources. So it's sending these resources back to us on our client side there. We also have the DNS. The DNS is the system that translates the domain name or translate the addresses. For instance, I'm in GitHub right now. So I'm sending a request, a GET request on my client side. Let's use this for example now. I'm sending a request. I'm sending a GET request right now. But it's fetching it for me. Whatever is going on the server side is being seen on the network. You can see it's bringing it out. It's bringing out the PNG, it's bringing out the script, it's bringing out several documents. And it's because I have a verified DNS. I have an address that I'm going to. So because I have an address, I'm able to access the address on the website, on the client side, and is able to get the request on the server side. So without the address, if there's a wrong address, like what I did here, it will just bring some words and say that this address does not exist or this does not match any documents. But because this is a verified address, is able to visit this address through the website, through the web browser from the client side, and is able to fetch it from the server side here, from the network tab. So after that, we also have the URL. And the URL is the full address, like the full address is an address used to access the resource on the website. So it has several parts. We have the protocol, we have the HTTP. This one is not bringing out HTTP, but if I'm in Mozilla, it brings out HTTP. We have HTTP. We have the github.com, which is the DNS, the IP. So HTTP is a protocol, is like a hypertext protocol that secures your address so that nobody can use the same address like you. That's why you can have several domain names, but you can't have the same IP address. Like we have index.html, we have what's it called? Index.html. Everybody use index.html. But when deployed or when sent to the server, we have protocols backing that index.html that cannot be accessed by another person. And that comes to the end of what is internet, what is the web, what's the reason why we are accessing the web. And to reiterate, the reason why we need the web is because we get resources from the web. When the user sends a response, naturally we have to get a response back from the server side. And that's why we have the client side, which is the web browser. We also have the server side, which is the computer that is storing these resources that you need and giving it back to you on the client side. But for you to be able to access the server side, you need DNS. And this DNS is backed up with HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's also in the format of URL, that is Uniform Resource Locator. So I guess you are able to understand what the internet means, what the web browser means. So with that, I'm going to move on to introduction to HTML. But before we can talk about HTML, we are going to talk about GitHub, because the project we'll be working on the assessment we'll be working on will be interacting with where we are going to save our projects. Like now, I'm on my GitHub account. So maybe by Saturday, we are going to talk fully about HTML. But this night, I'm going to talk about GitHub. The reason why you need a GitHub account as a software developer. You need a GitHub account as a software developer to be able to save your code, to be able to come back to your code and see what you can improve about your code and how to deploy your code, either on CI/CD pipeline or any other domain. So right now, I'm in my GitHub account. But if you have your laptop with you, we can go through how to open a new GitHub account here. Should we go through how to open a GitHub account today? Hello? Hello?
Okay, I can hear you. Please, are you here? If you can hear her, please respond so that she knows that she's talking to people.
I can hear you, ma'am.
Should I go through how to open a GitHub account for assessments for the next class? Or we should postpone it to
Okay.
Saturday?
Yes, we can. We should.
Are you with your laptop so that we can go through it today?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'll be going to github.com. I don't know if you're familiar with it. If you're familiar with it, therefore there's no need for us to go through it. But if you're not familiar
I'm
with
not
it,
familiar. It's my first time of hearing it, sir.
okay. So GitHub account is where you are able to collaborate to save your projects. And since we are going to be working on projects, we'll be building up projects upon projects. This is where we'll be saving our projects on github.com. So right now, excuse me, we're in github.com. So you can see the website here. But I'm going to sign up as a new user. Which you say this is your first time of opening a GitHub account, right?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
Okay. Jennifer, this is your first time of opening a GitHub account, right?
Yes, ma'am. It's my first time.
Okay. Can we use your Gmail or is not you are not you can't give it out?
Of course, we can.
Okay. So right now I'm going to open a GitHub account using your Gmail. So I'll need your Gmail and your password if you're okay with it. Can I
I'm
get
not
your
sure if I
Gmail
know
on the
my
message chat?
email password or what.
Okay, no problem. Don't worry.
Yes, I've got it.
Maybe she
Okay.
can't open it on her own. Maybe using it Gmail. Then I don't know.
Okay. So right now I'm trying to open a GitHub account. Well, I'm going to use your first letter, let's say. You can update the password when we are done.
Okay.
Yeah. Be serious. Excuse me, please. So yeah, we're going to use
But your screen is not showing. I'm not seeing what you're doing.
can you say it now?
No,
Is it visible? Are you saying it?
no, I'm not seeing it. Maybe others are seeing, but I'm not seeing.
I guess it's
Sorry,
your
guys.
network. Wi-Fi.
Interesting.
I
Okay, it's
can
my
see it.
network.
I guess it's your network because I can see that screen.
Let me see if I can switch. I can see your screen.
Yeah, we can go on with your using your email if we can see your screen.
Yeah, it's up now. I can see the screen now.
You can see it now. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm using this username. What username will you like us to use? Because clearly, I think I can't find any username right now. Okay. So I'm using another email to sign in. So these are your new GitHub accounts. And we create our first repository. So what we be working on is our first HTML. And we have to click on the add readme file because the add readme file is our markdown where we can save our document. So yeah, I'm going to create repository. And we have our first HTML for these accounts, for these GitHub accounts. So naturally, you have to have an ID. That is, you have to have either your VS Code or you can use any ID. I don't know which ID you are comfortable with, but we have several IDs. We have VS Code, we have JetBrains, we have Atom, and we have Sublime Text also. So mostly I use JetBrains, but right now in this lesson, I'm going to work on using VS Code for our project. So yeah, we're going to talk about HTML. And when we are talking about HTML, we are going to, whatever we are going to do, whatever we are going to build, we are going to send it to our GitHub. So we are going to do the GitHub processes for us to be able to save our HTML. And when we are talking about HTML, I know we are familiar with HTML, is an hypertext markup language. It's a standard markup language and is used to create web pages. The way you can read your text on Microsoft Word, on PDF, is the way we are reading your text on web browser. So for you to be able to interact with your browser, your web browser, there are protocols that are being followed, and this protocol include knowing how to interact with your text. So we have something we call hypertext, but before hypertext came in, we have something called XML. That one too is another way of writing text or writing words on web browser. But hypertext markup language makes it easier. We have a markup language. We also have markdown language. So the reason when we were creating our GitHub, I did something. I said we should click on readme.md. That is a readme file. The readme file is a markdown language, and this is an example of a markdown language. This is how a markdown language looks like. But an hypertext look like this. Index.html. We have an hypertext that looks like this, and you can interact with it in the body tag. So before we can interact with our web browser, we have several ways of building up our web browser. But the foundation of building up our web browser is the HTML. The HTML has several tags, several properties in which you can be able to build up your word, your document, or your word, or your text. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the basic HTML tags that are popularly used, or the way you are able to interact with it. Like when you go to your Google browser, we have this text, we have this what's it called, highlights, where your cursor is on it. We have this text written like this, is the HTML. When you try and inspect it, you can see the HTML written here. We have the div, we have the div class, we have several HTML tags being shown here for you to be able to render this kind of text. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think this
Can you hear me?
okay. So this is what HTML does. The HTML gives us a way to be able to interact with our text file, to be able to understand what our text file is. So we have the basic HTML tags. We have the HTML, and this is the root of HTML. Without HTML tag, without this HTML tag, we can't know that this is HTML. The file will not understand that this is HTML. So the HTML tag is the root of all HTML. And what does tags mean before I even move on? Tags is what determine the kind of text you are accessing. Is it a paragraph? Is it an italic? Is it a div? A div element is that, is it a box? Is it going to be in a box? Is it going to be a margin? Is it going to be an italic? Is it going to be a bold? That's what the tag means in HTML. So when I'm talking about tag, I mean that what does it represent in HTML? That's what tags mean in HTML. And we have the basic HTML, the one that is most important, that determines that this is an HTML file. It is the HTML tag. And the HTML tag is the element of an HTML document. Without the HTML tag, you are not declaring any HTML document. And here in our VS Code, we have the HTML tag. You have to tell it that this is an HTML tag for you to be able to access the HTML document. We can create any other document in an IDE or your VS Code. You can create a text file. You can create any other file. But when you want to create an HTML tag, you have to show that this is an HTML, and that's why we have the HTML tag. To create HTML file, you have to add an extension to it. We call this index.html extension. Like this readme.md is a markdown file. It's also a different way of writing text, but you can see that the extension is .md. When you want to create a file now, let's say we want to create another file, call them input.txt. This .txt is an extension, is what determines the kind of file you are creating. If you are creating a text file, you have to add .txt. If you are creating an HTML file, you have to add .html. If you are creating an MD file, a markdown file, you have to add .md. If you are creating a CSS file, you have to add .css. And if you want to go further, you are creating a JavaScript file, you have to add .javascript. So the extension is determined by the kind of file you want to create. Like now, I want to create a text file. I'm adding .txt. And this is my text file. You don't need a text file, you don't need anything to determine that this is a text file. Now I want to create an I want to create an HTML file. I'm going to write index.html, and this is what I've created here. But to be able to move further and say, okay, this is an HTML file, I have to have a basic tag to it, and this is the HTML tag. Without the HTML tag, it will be like any ordinary text file. But the HTML tag makes it to be what's it called? If you are familiar with digital marketing and the way they impute and the way you are able to access maybe something like Jumia, the way you are able to access something like Google, is because of the meta tags attached to it. When you have your HTML tags in your HTML file, you are able to determine that, okay, this is a document that is meant for the browser. So that's why we have the HTML tag attached to the HTML file in the HTML document. So when you have this kind of documents here, you can do a SEO, a search engine optimization for your web browser, where people are easily able to catch the phrase you are looking for. For instance, now this is a document. If I search the Google browser and I say document, it's going to give me several documents all around the world because they have the HTML tag. If I say text, it's going to give me text that is all over the world because they have the HTML tag that has the text tag. So right now, this is how we declare our HTML. We declare it with having the HTML tag as the first element, as the first root or the basic element in HTML. And this is how we declare it. HTML. And this, we have the HTML tag here, and we have the /HTML that is determining that this is an HTML tag. And you can see that it's bringing an error that a viewport meta element was not specified. So I have to specify the kind of meta element I want. I can specify the language element or anything. But right now we are not going there. And that's the introduction to the kind of element, the major element that is needed in HTML file, which is the root element of an HTML document. We also have the head, and the head contains meta information about the document. That is, what is the document about? You have the title, we have the character set, we have the length, and we have the external resources to CSS file. We also have the body. The body is what your web browser is all about. what does your website want to talk about? Does your website want to talk about poultry? Does your website want to talk about making clothes? So the body is what will contain whatever you want to write in your website. For instance, now, so now this is the body. This meta is what we talk about in the head, and this is the body. So the body can contain different kind of text. We can have the paragraph tag. We can have the div tag. But I'm going to talk about the paragraph tag now. The paragraph tag is, if I know you are familiar with paragraph, right? Are we familiar with paragraph here?
Yes.
So yeah, in the paragraph tag, let me just use Lorem. We can declare a paragraph or a text in the paragraph tag. So the paragraph is what is like, we are familiar with paragraph, right? So the paragraph is what we bring out the kind of paragraph we are looking for on the web browser. For instance, now I've written a certain words in the paragraph tag now, and I want to show this on the web browser here. You can see this is the paragraph. This is what it's rendering for us on the web browser. This is not magic, but as long as you understand the many of the tags you're accessing, all those tags must be within the body tag. Whatever you want to write, either the images you want to add, either the paragraph tag, either the certain words that you want to put in a box that we call the div, or you want to put a section, or you want to put a navbar, everything must be in the body. So the body is the embodiment of what takes in whatever you want, the words you want to use in your web browser, in your website. So for instance, now this is what I typed in my IDE in VS Code, and it's the paragraph in the body. So this paragraph is bringing it out here on the web browser, and you can see that my website is official. I have a paragraph, and if I try to inspect on the element here, you can see it's taking, we have the body tag that contains the paragraph, and the paragraph contains the word that is being displayed here. So if I try to, I know we talk about the client side and the server side. So if I try to run the network here, if I try to run it, it's bringing out the network, it's getting the request from the server, and it's reporting it down to the client side, which we are able to see. So this is what the website is all about. And this is the basic website. The basic website contains the HTML. And we are doing introduction to hypertext markup language, which is the HTML. So we have the links, and this is used to create hyperlinks. We also have the image, and this is used to embed images in web page. So right now I've talked about the different kind of text editor or IDE we can use. That is the integrated editor we can use for writing HTML. Right now I'm using the VS Code. If you have VS Code on your PC, you can use VS Code. We also have Sublime Text, but it depends on the kind of editor you are familiar with, what you are used to. So right now we also have the HTML structure. Wait, somebody saying something. So we have the HTML structure, which I have already explained. And we also have the conclusion. And the conclusion is that with the hypertext, when you build up your HTML or your VS Code or your Sublime Text on any text editor, you are able to view it on your client side as on the web browser as a client, or your client side or your website. As long as it's fetching something, it's fetching a response from the server side. Here we have the basic website here. And we also have a response being sent. That is when we unload it. is giving us a response here. Naturally, it's fetching the response from the network or from the server in which we save the response. So everything we've said in conclusion is that a website must first of all receive a response from you, the user, before it can process the request. Whatever you are doing on the website requires a response and a request. If you are processing payment, you have to send a response, and naturally you will receive a request. If you are working with what's it called, a game, you have to send a response and return, and it must definitely give you back a response. When you send a response or when you send a request, it definitely returns back a response. So as long as you keep on sending a request, it will keep on sending you back a response. That is basically what a website or an internet is all about. So I guess with this short introduction, you are able to understand what web is all about, what internet is all about, and the little bit of HTML we are able to introduce. And regarding the GitHub account, we can reiterate on that one next week. And also regarding the VS Code, we can also reiterate on that one too next week before we can start building up or working on project we'll be working on. So do you have any question? Hi, do you have any question or any queries?
Jennifer, are you there? Ifemi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
You
you
don't.
don't. Do you have any questions? That's what she's asking. Please, let's try to be responding.
I don't have any question because all of these things she said, to be honest, I did not understand anything because it's my first time. So all of the grammars, the terms, I'm not familiar with them. So I think personally what I have to do is to go back, probably, surf through the internet and familiarize myself with them first before I can now understand what we talked about. So that's for me. So I don't know about the other persons that are here.
And
Thank
naturally, I
you.
will send the link of the documents to the WhatsApp group so that you can peruse it and maybe browse about it.
Okay, so just try to go
Okay,
through
now,
the.
thank you.
Also, I shared the curriculum. We shared the curriculum in the class, in the group.
Yes,
Sorry.
I've seen it too.
Have you started reading through the resources that was added there for week one?
Week one is just like an introduction of what it's the same thing about the curriculum and the timetable. They are just the same. They are the same from what I'm seeing here. They are the same.
No, there's a curriculum we shared, like a PDF document where when you open, you see week one, then you see some links that you can click on and be
Okay,
able to
link.
read.
Okay. Okay, I didn't see the link earlier. Okay, I've seen it.
So
I
you
can see
can
it.
read up, and we said you people can read it in the like before the class, so that when she's now saying things like this, you will now, do you understand? You will now be familiar with some of the terms that she's using. But if you don't read some those things and come, you might be lost like today now. So you try to like read some of those things before the class, so that when you come to the class, you can now
Okay.
ask
Okay,
any
I'll do
questions.
that.
Uh,
Okay, I'll do that.
the author of this class would also be there. So if you, as you're reading, you can also watch the class and see help you like to help you also go back to and then get some of the explanations. So when you're reading, you can come back to the video and see the explanations that she has made for some of these terms and all of that. Because I know that she did she gave in-depth explanations to things. But I mean, I understand the fact that you're just hearing these things for the first time, so you might somehow not even understand anything. But yeah, So that's the essence of reading some of these resources before the class, so that you are familiar with some of the words and you are already familiar with some things. Then when she's now explaining things, you will now be getting more understanding.
Okay, ma. I'll do that. I'll do that.
And also regarding the VS Code part or the editor part, don't worry, we are going to that one is going to be full on practical on Saturday, so that we can do it step by step and you can understand how to you can push your code to GitHub and you can view it on the web browser. So that should also come by Saturday by the grace of God.
Okay, ma, no problem, ma. I'll just read
Yes,
through and maybe go through the video.
no problem. And I guess Uche to understand whatever we put out there in the class.
Yeah, to some extent, yes.
Some extent, I thought was it called maybe interesting. But no problem. We are going to practically software development is all about practicals. And what we'll be doing is just practical and how to do it so that it will not look so confusing. The theory aspect is interesting when you read through it, but when you practicalize it, it's far much better when you interact with whatever you are building on and you're able to see what you are doing. So I guess with this few point of mine and my very fast explanation, I'm able to convince you that software development is very, very, very interesting. So, I,
Yes,
oh, what do you say, Jennifer?
I said yes, yes, ma. Yes.
Don't worry, it will be
I
very,
can
very.
see it's interesting. I'll take my time to read.
Don't worry, you will understand what is going on behind the scene and understand that you can interact with building up your project. So by Saturday, what we are going to do is just basically practical how we can push our code from IDE. Maybe what I will do is that we will start from the ground up, how to install VS Code, how to open an account where everybody is able to open their accounts, and how to push whatever we do to the GitHub, and how to see whatever we are doing on the web browser. So I really appreciate you for joining this class. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening to whatever I have to say this night. So by Saturday, we'll be more prepared to go through practicals and do something tangible. So for now, because everybody is just starting up and this is an introduction, we won't be having any assessment for now. So by Saturday, we'll start having assessments and working on projects. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the class.
Thank you so much, ma.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tolu. Thank you.